Once you're secure the government contract and you do a good job, honey, you are set. The first client that I was able to secure was the largest asset manager in the world. Nothing was working. I was like, what the hell is going on? You need those moments to kind of shake you up so that you can think and move differently. You're never gonna know if it's gonna work unless you freaking do it.
Hello, amazing GoCon winners. I have a special guest today, and y'all don't even know how amazing this is and what a special treat you are in for. Ms. Victoria Jenn Rodriguez, who in just a moment is going to tell you all about herself. But let me just share this. What she has created is so amazing that she is able to, during the holidays, work just a few days and then take weeks off. So she is not in a position where she has to ask for time off or have to use sick days to take the days off to buy gifts for family. That is not the case at all. So I'm so excited to have you here. You're a stellar business coach. We all need a business coach, no matter if you bring in nothing or if you bring in 20 million a year. Learning is super important. So welcome and love having you here. Please tell us all about yourself.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm super pumped and excited to connect with your audience and just tell my story. I think stories are powerful and stories are what humanity needs right now to connect and just not feel so, crappy about their situation because everybody has something going on. So the way that I like to describe myself is a corporate hustler turned serial entrepreneur. And basically what that means is 15 years, I was on the corporate grind. I worked on Wall Street, consumer product goods, healthcare. I even worked on legislation in Washington and Albany. And my last corporate gig, I was heading up talent management for Johnson & Johnson. And they decided that they wanted to relocate me to Tampa, Florida. No shade to Tampa. And I know you guys are going to get to know me, but I'm more of a Miami girl. So I was like, that's not going to work for me. So thank you. I'll take my severance. I appreciate you. And after that, I was still planning to stay in corporate. And I was looking for jobs. I was going on interviews and making it to final rounds. And I just couldn't close. Like nothing was working. I was like, what the hell is going on? And after my last big interview with a company that I was really excited to work for, after it didn't go through, I was like, you know what? Let me pay attention to what's happening right now. Like, let me tap in. What is the universe trying to tell me right now? And at the time, I had a pretty good savings account and I was pretty confident that I would be okay if I wanted to try something new. And it was at that point that I decided to bet on myself, risk it all, and pursue this crazy thing called entrepreneurship. I had no idea what the hell I was doing. No one in my family ever started a business. I had no peers. Entrepreneurship was not as sexy as it is right now. So there wasn't as much information. It was just something that I felt in my soul that I was like, you know what, B? You need to challenge yourself a little bit. Color outside the lines. Let's do something out of the ordinary. And that's how I started my entrepreneurship career.
Wow, I love that because often there isn't this safety net. It's not like, oh, grandma's been an entrepreneur and dad and our cousins. It's often what do I do? And so where did you begin? What was that? What was the first sale?
First sale was actually a mock interviewing. So my last job when I was doing talent management, I did also a lot of recruiting. So I was very familiar with, managing your career through the corporate grind, interview training, resume writing. And so my business actually launched as a resume and interview training consulting firm. And so the first money that came in was people hiring me to redo their resumes and do interview training and essentially career coaching. So that's how it started. And after a couple of months of doing that, I was like, hold up, this is a lot of work. This one-on-one coaching thing is a lot of work. Me spending the time to literally revamp someone's resume was taking a lot of time. And I was like, I need to figure out, and this has always been the goal, is how do I make the most by doing the least? That is the goal. And so I went to a conference and I met this gentleman who was a corporate consultant. And he and I were sipping on some wine. It was Napa, California. And he told me, he was like, you should really consider going after corporate contracts. And I was like, what does that even mean? And then he shared with me that he was able to secure $100,000 under a corporate contract for a 1-month engagement. And I said, that sounds up my lane. Tell me more about that. And he basically put me on game on how to secure a corporate contract, what money was really spoken about when you go after a contract. Because, at the time when I left corporate, I was making $150,000 and that was in a year. And so the idea of being able to make $100,000 in a month, I was like, ooh, I was taking all the notes. And it was at that point where my interview resume, career coaching firm transitioned into a consulting firm. And my main client were corporate clients.
Wow. I am blown away by this because, oh my goodness, you've so just spot on described this journey that so many of us experience, where starting out, we go out there, we step out on faith, you're doing it, and then we often will start in the area where we have the experience, right? So you jump in there and it's exciting, and then it's like, oh my gosh, this involves a lot of work. Doing the thing.
Right.
Doing the thing is just so time consuming, and it's like, it's amazing and it feels good, but then you want to scale and have a business model so then you can take those 2 weeks off.
Right.
You don't have to worry about doing both. So you may not be able to share their name, but how did you go from that, you're sipping wine, you get the game, to that, landing like the first corporate client?
So it was pretty insane because the first client that I was able to secure was the largest asset manager in the world. And the way that came about is, I told you guys, when Johnson & Johnson wanted to relocate me, I was still on the interview train. Like, I was still interviewing with different firms, and I just so happened to interview with this firm. And the woman that I met, we had an instant connection, and she grew a liking to me. And so we just stayed in contact, even though the opportunity that I interviewed for at that time didn't make sense. And maybe 6 months after that interview, she reached out to me, and she knew that I had started my business because it was all over on the LinkedIn. Like, I let the whole world know, like, hey, I'm in business, so send me all the coins, right? And she asked me if I wanted to go back to corporate. She was like, I have another opportunity. Are you sure you don't want to come back here? And I'm like, girl, no, I am good. I am starting this new chapter. And she was like, okay. Then 2 months later, she reaches out to me again, and she was like, okay, so I think I have a corporate contract for you. I said, what? Wait, hold on. Really? With who? And she's like, with my firm. And I'm like, holy shit, like, this is the largest asset manager in the world. Like, this is insane. And she really put me in position to secure that contract. Like, obviously I had to go in and I had to sell myself and all of that. But if it wasn't for her, I would have never gotten the opportunity to actually go after this contract. And it was so crazy because it was my first corporate contract. So I had no idea what the hell I was doing. So that same gentleman that I had the wine with in Napa, California, like, he was on speed dial. I was like, okay, how do I negotiate this? Like, what do I say with this? And what do I say with that? I was really lucky to have someone in that corner that was willing to take the time to show me the ropes and not charge me. Like, he didn't charge me anything. He was also Latino and I'm Latina. So it was just like so dope how, like, yes, help someone in the community get put on, please. And he very much believes in that. So he kind of coached me throughout the experience. He coached me through the experience of, like, how I was going to ask for the money, how I was going to ask to get paid that money. And I'll share the numbers with you because I think it's important for women in particular and women of color to talk about numbers and not be afraid to talk about those numbers.
Yes.
This contract was for $150,000, right? It was my first corporate contract for $150,000. So your girl was nervous because I was like, holy shit, I'm about to go $150,000. Like, this is crazy. Like, that was how much I was making in my career. And here I am within 6 months of my entrepreneur journey, I'm about to secure my entire salary, like, in this one contract. So I'm like super nervous, like going through the negotiations, but I put on my like business face and was like, you got this, V. I had to do my little pep talks before I went into all the meetings and everything like that. And I had to have a lawyer look over this contract because, y'all, when you doing business at this level and someone's about to pay you $150,000, like, you're about to have a contract that's like 100 pages. And I don't know, I'm not reading through that contract. Like, I don't even know half of the vernacular that's used in there. So I had to get a lawyer, like all these things, like very quickly overnight. Like, I graduated to like a new level in business and I was scared as shit. But you know what? It was like one of those moments where I was like, okay, V, like, this is your moment. Like, you're going to leave this $150,000 on the table or you're going to go after it. Like, just do what you do and do it. And so that's what I did. I just showed up. Long story short, they brought me on for the engagement and it was an amazing experience and I thanked them for this opportunity because I would have never learned, right? Somebody has to take a chance on you and bet on you in order for you to kind of learn the ropes. And there were so many things that I learned through that experience that I'm now able to apply to other contracts that have come my way. And I'm always able to also throw it out there like, yeah, I'm working with the largest asset manager in the world. What I do. But it was a very interesting process to get there. And so the main takeaway from this I want you guys to get is cultivate your relationships. And just because you meet with someone about one particular opportunity doesn't mean that can't evolve into something else, right? The woman who put me on, I was interviewing for a job. She was going to be my boss, right? But I just stayed in contact with her and expressed gratitude, kept showing up online. So I was top of mind, kept people on the journey with me and was willing to fail in public, essentially. Like, I didn't know if this was going to work. I didn't know, but I was taking people on the journey with me. And I think that resonated with people. People are inspired when someone takes a risk and they have the courage to do that because they want to do them too. They just don't know where to start, or there could be a lot of other things working against that. And so that's the main takeaway here is cultivate your relationships and do it scared.
And I love that you not only did it scared, but you went back and asked for additional help, because so many will do it scared, but then for whatever reason, a little resistant to ask for help. And it's so needed because fewer than 5% of us women as entrepreneurs have businesses that bring over $1 million a year. So
yeah, 4% of women in business bring in $1 million in revenue a year.
I mean, it's so tiny. So I love that you not only took the chance, but you went back and asked for help and he didn't charge you.
Yes, that right there was huge. And it was also, a teachable moment for me, because for anybody who's in the coaching space or consulting space, you always have a decision to make, because a lot of the questions and advice people are asking for and just come up in conversation is what you usually charge for. And so it's always an interesting situation, at least for me, when I'm having conversations like, okay, am I going to give this completely away, or am I going to make this a client? How am I going to manage this relationship? And it's something to be cognizant of and think about. But having experiences like that I had with this gentleman really instilled in me, if you're a giver, the universe will reward you, right? And I think that's important to keep in mind, but also we met at an event where it literally was about supporting the Latino community and supporting each other and pouring into each other and giving each other an opportunity to up level. So, we were already in that mindset, right? We were already there because we were committed to elevating the community. And so being mindful of where you meet people is really important, because that'll set the tone of, okay, how should I handle this relationship, right? And is this an opportunity, or is this a way for me to cultivate a relationship? Because people appreciate when you come through as an asset, right? If you are able to position yourself as someone who has information, someone who can connect them to someone, right? And you do it, that's going to stay top of mind when an opportunity comes by. And so it's all about relationship management and getting practice. Because with practice, you're able to kind of learn okay, how do I show up here? How do I manage this possible opportunity? And how do I know when someone's taking advantage of me? I think is important, but that only comes with practice.
Those are such great points that you hit on, because there was that question, do I give it away? Do I hold it in? You should pay, you should pay for this. And I love that you talked about we get what we put out. I love giving away things. I love just helping. So this is, oh my goodness, I'm inspired. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is so exciting. I love this. And so, one thing I really love about you is I've noticed you talk a lot about getting unstuck. Mm-hmm. And I would love for you to speak to that.
So the reason why I'm so passionate about talking about getting unstuck is because pre-pandemic, your girl was on a roll. All the corporate contracts, I was making the most money of my career. Life was lit, okay? And then the pandemic happened, and I'm pretty sure people can relate to this, right? Because this was the story for a lot of people. And I was like, I didn't expect to be so impacted by the social injustice, by watching CNN, by us being stuck in the house. I'm an extrovert, and I very much feed off of other people's energy. Like, I love people. I love being around people. I love to host. And so the fact that I was stuck in my house was really, really hard for me. And then on top of that, everything that was going on the social economic scene was really difficult. And it didn't hit me that I was stuck until I found myself watching Netflix on my couch, 30 pounds heavier, and not making any money. Like, I didn't bring in any money. And it was crazy because the work that was making money at the time, corporate was like really thirsty for inclusion and diversity consultant, really thirsty for leadership development, really thirsty to keep their employees engaged, which was my area of expertise, right? In my consulting firm. So much money was left on the table, but I was so impacted by what I was feeling and working through those emotions. I also went through a big breakup during the pandemic, and I didn't realize how much of a toll it was taking on me until I looked at my bank account and I was like, oh shit, girl, you haven't brought in any money in like a whole year. That's crazy. Like, what you doing? And I was stuck. Like, it took me a minute to get out. And I'm going to tell you how I got out, because that's usually always the follow-up question.
So I want to know. Like, we want to know. We want to be stuck.
So the way that I got out was, I was like, okay, something needs to happen here. And, you know, I grew up Catholic, but I was never really I never really had the thing faith that like the nuns would be like, when I would ask them questions, they'd be like, well, you just have to have faith. And I'm like, faith? Like, I can't touch faith. I can't feel faith. Like, what do you mean? And so I kind of distanced myself from my beliefs in God, because it just didn't, like, nothing had happened to me in my life where I felt like, oh, that was God. And so when I was going through this process, I was like, okay, maybe I need to tap into something outside of myself. And maybe I need to talk to God. Like, maybe this is my opportunity to like connect with this spiritual energy that so many people around me have a connection to, and I don't. I felt like left out. I felt like, you know, why am I not singing at the top of my lungs in church? Like, why am I not thanking God in my speeches? Like, what is missing? And so I ended up going to California, and I stayed at a colleague's home, a beautiful home. And she was away with her hubby for a couple of days, and she let me stay in her home. And in her backyard, she had this gorgeous, like, green oasis. Like, you walk into that backyard and it's just like the air just smelled different. Like, it was just this beautiful thing. And I remember coming home from dinner one night, and I walked to that backyard, and I just like closed my eyes, and I was like, God, like, if you're real, like, give me a sign. Like, I need some direction. I need guidance. I need you to like lead me in this moment. And out of nowhere, it was not a windy night. It was not like no crazy weather. Out of nowhere, this crazy wind smacked me in my face, like literally right in my face after I said what I said. And I was like, is this it? I'm like, is this the sign? But I knew immediately after that happened, like, I don't know, like this energy in me it just felt like I was different now. And so I went to sleep, and I woke up the next day, and I met a girlfriend for Kundalini yoga. And I don't know if you're familiar with Kundalini yoga, but Kundalini yoga is very much about your breath. It's very much about you connecting with your internal compass. It's very much about you kind of getting outside of yourself while being inside of yourself. And they do this practice with your breathing. And so we're doing Kundalini yoga. I'm breathing, and out of nowhere, again, that same wind came and slapped me in my face, and I cried the hardest cry that I can remember ever crying. And it just felt like a release. It just felt like I was lighter now. And it felt like I needed that. Like, I needed that release, and I needed to feel like I could look forward to something new. That's essentially how I felt. And I got back on the plane, came back, and then my spiritual journey continued. And it continues to kind of live through me, and I continue to learn, and I continue to like pay attention to how I move and how I speak. Now every day when I wake up, there's a prayer that I say every single day religiously, and things are just different. Now I really believe that I was brought to this place in my life, not because of the universe, but because of God, right? Because of that energy. Like, he gave me a purpose in life, right? He gave me the gift of inspiring, education, motivating, right? Being the change I want to see to help others be comfortable in their skin and get unstuck. And so that's how I got here.
Wow, I could like feel that as you were speaking. Like, that gave me chills. It's just, it definitely, as a person of faith and having my birth family, them being Catholic, so many things I can relate to. But that, oh man, that sign. And you went with the sign. Some people get that wind smacking them and they don't go with it, but you did.
Yeah, I did, because I was what I considered at my worst. And I think that we are all so scared of like failing and being at our worst and not being our best and not having all the answers. But it's in those moments where you allow opportunity for you to get a new perspective, for you to take advantage of some new energy, or for you to make a left when you've been always going right your entire life. Like, you need those moments to kind of shake you up, so that you can think and move differently, because obviously the way you were moving and thinking got you to the hole. So in order for you to get out the hole, like, you need to do something different. In order for you to get unstuck, you need to do something different. You need to create the wave, right? And so it's important for us to find ourselves in those moments where we're spiraling, because that will force us to create the wave.
Yes. And if you don't create it, then, you can't go up in life.
Exactly. Like, you got to have the waves.
You do. And how do you do that now for others? Because I want to hear about, and I know all my amazing GovCon winners want to know about that pivot. Because just like in government contracting, we often pivot. We may start off in construction or start off in training and pivot, and now you're in, IT support call center. So please share with us kind of how that's going. How's that work?
Yeah, so I pivoted a couple of times in my entrepreneur journey and reinvented myself a couple of times. And I think a lot of people shy away from entrepreneurship because they think like, A, they need to have all the answers. I need to know exactly what I'm going to do at all times in order for me to do this, or it's not going to work. Or they feel like they're going to have to do the same thing over and over again in order to achieve something, or in order to like get where they're trying to go. The beautiful thing about entrepreneurship is there's different levels, and each time you graduate to a new level, it's like a new opportunity for you to try something new. Like, it makes it exciting and also creates overwhelm. I'm pretty aware of that. But hey, if you move constant, you're always going to be comfortable. You're always going to be like nonchalant about things because you're comfortable, right? And so after I discovered corporate contracts, I was like, cool, that's a stream of income that I can always count on. And then I decided that I wanted to have another stream of income. And so I said, you know what? I do events very well. I know how to do events. So let me put on an event. And I invited 3 other women that I met on Instagram to help me put on this event. And we sold it out in 3 months. We had women flying in from around the country. And I was like, wow, this is not what I expected, but this is freaking awesome. And after we had the event, there was so much positive feedback, women crying, women thanking us for this space where they could like take off their masks, check the BS at the door, and like really show up authentically and really gather on a human level first. And then everything else would come, right? And so at that moment, we called it the Woman Who Wore Summit. And at that moment is when I decided, you know what? I want to turn this into an official business. Like, I think there's an opportunity here. And so I decided to incorporate this summit into an actual organization, which I called the Female Collaborative. And so we became a 501c3, and I started growing up that nonprofit. That was an experience I would have never had if I never became an entrepreneur, and I never decided I needed this additional stream of income. So I was like, okay, let's do this. Let's test it out, right? Entrepreneurship is very much about trial and error. Like, you're never going to know if it's going to work unless you freaking do it. Like, that's the only way for you to know, right? And so started a nonprofit, wildly successful, had great corporate sponsors. And then I started to realize, like, hold up, I don't want to be the executive director of your nonprofit. Like, that is not my calling. This is not what I want to do. And I was ending up in that position because I was the founder, because our board was all volunteer, And I was like, this ain't for me. Like, I love giving back, absolutely. But one of the lessons that I learned, and this is why you have to try and you have to see what works and doesn't work, is that I've actually should have turned that into a for-profit versus a nonprofit. I firmly believe that. But that was a lesson that I had to learn. And during that lesson, I also learned a lot about the nonprofit space, a whole lot about the taxes, the politics, corporate money coming in, all the jobs. So I'm thankful for the experience. And that is why all of us, as we are on these journeys, we need to do it scared, but also fail. Like fail and fail a lot, fail fast, because that's where the major learnings are. Like there's no book that's going to teach you the learnings that you will get out of a failure. None, because they're personal to you, right? So the nonprofit thing was going. And then I decided, you know what? Like a lot of women are asking me like how I'm doing this, how I was able to make the transition from corporate, how I was able to start the nonprofit, how am I getting corporate contract? Like how am I getting paid to speak? How the hell am I doing all of this? And I was like, okay, how can I teach this and help women achieve economic freedom, also build confidence? And that's how my latest business venture, the Dare to Leap Academy, was born. And the Dare to Leap Academy is an online learning platform where I teach women who are in corporate or in the 9-to-5 grind how to transition to entrepreneurship without losing their financial security. So it's very much about you using your employer as your first business sponsor to build out your business while you are working. And in the academy, we focus on 3 major buckets. One is mindset. Like I'm a firm believer that needs to be priority numero uno. Like you need to work through your shit or else it's gonna come and bite you in the ass every single day on your journey, right? It's gonna come and bite you and it's going to hold you back. That doesn't mean that the same emotions that you felt when you first started, you're not feeling throughout the journey, okay? Because like, listen, there's days where I'm like I'm just like not feeling it. And then there's days where I feel like I'm on top of the world. It's like an emotional roller coaster. That is the life. But having the right mindset training, you have different toolkits and strategies in place to help you get over the hump. And that's what's really important. And so in the mindset phase, we cover things like imposter syndrome, how to get out of your own way, how to use fear as your propeller instead of your Achilles heel. And there's a number of strategies that we built into those modules so that you're able to master your mindset, which is incredibly important. And the next phase, which is the phase that a lot of entrepreneurs try to skip over because we got egos on us. We think we know it all and you can't tell me nothing and all this. Okay. So in this is business fundamentals is the next phase. And this is all about you building a strong foundation. So this is you knowing the difference between an LLC and an S Corp, knowing the difference between a solo entrepreneur, knowing the difference, understanding really business taxes versus business credit. Like, how does that even work? I have a story here. And this is why I teach this so passionately inside the academy is when I first started and I was making all the like cash, right? And I was securing on these corporate contracts. That first year, I had to pay Uncle Sam $30,000. And till this day, it still hurts my soul because I'm like, I cannot believe I paid these fools $30,000. But it was because I was a victim of what I didn't know, right? I didn't know what I didn't know. And I sure as hell didn't know business taxes. Like, again, I had nobody to look to teach me the ropes on business taxes. And so I didn't understand that I could expense certain things. I didn't understand that instead of giving that 30 grand to Uncle Sam, I could have invested in computers, technology. I could have taken a business trip to go meet someone. Like so many things I could have did with that money instead of giving it to Uncle Sam, but I didn't know any better. And so that's really the whole premise behind the Dare to Leap Academy. It's like all my intellectual property, all the mistakes that I've made, all of the learnings are in this hub so that you don't have to go through what I went through and you actually can accelerate the learning curve, right? It's something that I wish existed when I first started. And so in Business Fundamentals, we also teach you about going after corporate and government contracts, right? Like how you secure this big ass bag, like let's go, honey. And to continue that stat, so kids, the 4% of women in business make $1 million, but the way they hit $1 million, 54% of them hit $1 million by going after corporate and government contracts. So it is the fastest way. If $1 million is your goal, like that is the way for you to secure the big bag at the fastest rate is going after these contracts. So we teach you how to go after the contracts. We teach you how to get certified, as a woman-owned business, as a minority woman-owned business. And then the last phase is all about like, okay, now that we have our plan, now that we know what we're going to sell, let's package this so that we have an actual thing that we know how to sell, and let's teach you how to sell it. Because if you don't know how to sell, you're not going to be successful in business, period. Like, you have to know how to sell. It's one of the core skill sets that you need to have. It's not one of those things that you can jump over. Like, you need to know how to sell. And so we teach you how to sell. We teach you how to put your offer in a pitch deck. So literally the pitch decks that I use to go after corporate funding for my nonprofit and also to secure contracts is in there. And we teach you how to sell online and offline. So offline, we teach you how to sell face-to-face, and online, how to use social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, all that jazz to build a brand that actually pays you. And so, yeah, that's the Academy. That's my baby, and I love it.
I love this. And I love the stat that you shared about contracting. I would love to hear about what are some areas of government contracting that your clients have gone into, or you've gone into, or maybe currently in.
So I think, Kizzy, you actually probably have more intel on government contracts than I do, because government contracts is something that I flirt with, meaning they're not as consistent as my corporate contracts. My corporate contracts, they're consistent. I know that game very well, but I found with government contracts, it's a completely different ballgame. There's a lot more red tape, in my opinion, and it takes longer. Like, it's a longer game versus the corporate contract. Decisions are made faster. The RFP process isn't as intense. There aren't kind of like all these channels you have to go through, all these levels you need to graduate through in order to hit it. However, once you secure the government contract and you do a good job, honey, you are set, okay? Because that retainer money hit different. And that I know. And that is why I still teach it, because I do believe there's value there. And the more you know different ways to play the game, the better you set yourself up to scale and also last. So it really is about educating yourself. Okay, like, what are the different pillars that I can bring in money? Like, what are the different ways that I can bring in money? And that's really what we are showing you. And I keep it real. I keep it completely real about the process, how to go get it, where you need to be, the work that is required for you to get it, but also the benefit. Like, once you get it, you got it. Like, you in the system, you know what I mean? And like, again, when you're on that retainer, that government money, they're not going nowhere. Every year, the government is always like, oh, they're going to pause the money and we're not going to get any money. And every year they get refunded more and more money. Like, that's not going nowhere. Like, that federal money is not going nowhere. And then depending on what state and city you live in, that's also another layer of opportunity. So there's like literally 3 layers within doing business with the government. And so it's really a great opportunity for us, especially folks of color, to understand that game. Because once you know the rules of engagement, you're able to set yourself up for success.
Yes, I love this because having those pillars are key, because there are many out there who love corporate. They want to continue in corporate. The decision making is fast. But then being able to, as you said, like, flirt with government, have some government, that's another pillar, maybe state and local, county. That's what's great, is it's not about just one type of client. You can have all of these different types of clients, which is great, because then it helps your foundation. You have all this revenue coming in. You don't have to worry about, oh man, something happened in this state of Illinois is going to impact my bottom line. But it's fine, because then you have work with the government. You have your corporate clients. Maybe you have work in the amazing state of Florida. Who knows? But I love that. And where can people go to get information on the Academy?
Yeah, so you can go to our website, which is dtlacademy.biz. And when you go to that website, there's actually a free training that I offer. So if you guys are interested in entrepreneurship, or you just started and you're like, okay, how can I scale this bad boy? That training is really helpful for you, because it shows you 3 steps that you can literally take today in order for you to begin that transition or start to scale up an existing business. So when you go to the site, you'll see that training there. Please take advantage of that opportunity. It's kind of like my gift to you and to the world. Like, get this information, honey, so we can go secure this big bag. Let's go.
It is so, so true. Like, there's no reason. Go to the site. And then also, because I have to just say, she's got over 100,000 followers on Instagram. So y'all need to follow her. So share your handle, please.
Sure. So my handle is at the letter I, the letter A, the letter M, Victoria Jenn, Jenn. So at I am Victoria Jenn. And that's really where you can find me on pretty much all the social platforms. So on the Twitter, everywhere. That's the handle.
And I love her content. It's very inspirational. It's real. I love, love, love your content. It's needed. It feels good because it's like, especially as an entrepreneur, we're kind of on our own little boats over here sometimes. And so I love watching your content, and I'm like, oh, man, I'm further inspired and I'm not alone. And it's really cool. And I really appreciate it. Is there any other ways you would love for people to connect with you? Because they're going to connect with you.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm out here. So if you Google Victoria Jenn Rodriguez, the Googles know me, okay? So you will be able to find me very easily. But come hang out with me on LinkedIn. Come hang out with me on the gram. Come join me inside the Dare to Leap Academy. Check out the Female Collaborative. I mean, literally, if you just put in my name on Google, you'll be able to learn a lot and connect with me. And I'm very much about community. And so I would love to welcome you into my space and help you on your journey to, find yourself again, if that's where you are, to get comfortable in your own skin and to get unstuck and to really tap into your badassery. I'm your girl.
Yes, I love that. And I cannot thank you enough. Thank you enough for being here, because you inspire me. And I'm so glad you're here. And I know all my GovCon winners are inspired, Victoria. I know this. I know they're inspired because they know, in addition to being inspired, they got to hit the notification button. Y'all got to like, comment, share. Please do all of that. And you all know, and this is why I have her here, is because everything is possible. And you truly exude that. And I can't thank you enough.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.